Hello and welcome back to the Toilets Titles Podcast Network, and we are here for another off-season breakdown bonus episode. George promised we were going to hit all 32 this year, and I didn't believe him last year, but I kind of believe him this year. I think we're going to do it. But this is the second of our series. You can go back and check out the Miami Dolphins with Mike Oliva from Dolphins Talk that we dropped 2 nights ago on Monday night, and now the second. I'm excited about today's guest because it's the first time I've ever got to interact with them in person. But before we get to him, George, my man, you're the one that set up the show. You're the one that scheduled it. I'm going to let you introduce the guy, but how you doing this evening?
Doing absolutely fantastic. I told you last year we'd get to all 32 teams. That was a bold-faced lie. I think we got to like 19 or 20 of them. So this year the goal is definitely all 32, and I'm telling you right now, we will do it one way or another, whether it's me doing just all 32 teams myself, or if I can get people to come on to talk with me, we're going to do it. So give you my word on that. But it's enough about me. Let's get to our guest. We got Mr. Antwan Staley. He's a beat writer for the New York, It's the New York Daily News. He's been covering the NFL for 13 years. You may recognize him from covering the Miami Dolphins. He's covered the Panthers. He's now covering the Jets. Antwan, thank you first off and foremost for your time and agreeing to come on and talk a little bit of Jets football with us. We do greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all.
So my first question for you is, what do you got going on right now? You work for the New York Daily News, so we can go there, we can check out your work. What's your next bit of work you're going to be dropping for us?
In terms of football, I'm not sure because I'm actually like moonlighting doing NHL coverage with the Rangers right now. So, and then it's kind of a dead period right now. I mean, they're doing teams are still in the off-season program, so it's not a lot going on regards to the Jets. But obviously, OTAs is coming up and everything like that. So you never know. Well, we'll see. I'll do some articles, but probably not a lot throughout the next couple of weeks.
So if you're a Jets fan watching this, you're just going to go make sure you're following Antwan at Antwan Staley, just in case, so that you're ready to go whenever he does start dropping that Jets knowledge for you. So yeah, greatly appreciate you coming on, man. We're going to break down position by position, but not, in super detail. Defense is just defense in general, because we do have primarily like a fantasy football minded group for the most part. So a lot of us are used to just grouping defense together. I'm not asking you to talk fantasy unless you want to, but I'm not going to bury the lead either. Aaron Rodgers, we just recently got news that he should have absolutely no restrictions, according to Robert Saleh, during OTA, so he should be ready to roll by week 1. Obviously, it seemed to me the last 2 years as an outsider looking in that the Jets were just a quarterback away. Now we finally could potentially get that quarterback. So how excited are you as a Jets guy to finally see it in action?
Well, I'm not a Jets fan or anything like that, so I'm not really excited in that sense. But I mean, I think for the fan base and just everybody is a football fan. I think people are want anticipating his return. It was such build up last year, and of course it just went away in 4 plays. But yeah, I definitely think that obviously the Jets are excited. Last year, it was a bit of a wash, especially with Zach Wilson mostly starting. But yeah, I definitely think having Aaron Rodgers back is definitely giving, a jolt to the whole entire organization right now.
Right on. And George, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the Jets, speaking of their quarterback room, they've had some movement there. They dealt away Zach Wilson. How did that go over with the fan base, and what was the issue with Zach Wilson in New York? Is he truly a bad quarterback, or was he just put in a bad situation in New York?
I mean, how did it go over? I mean, I think most people thought it was time to move on anyway, including Zach. So I don't think it was necessarily a whole lot of angry people upset that Zach Wilson finally got traded too. It probably should have happened a year ago, to be completely honest with you. But they decided they wanted to hold on to him, and it kind of bit them in the back that side. But in terms of what was the second question?
Is he truly a bad quarterback? I was a fan of his coming out of college, but like it just seems like it it never clicked for him in New York. And I just don't know if it was the NFL is just too big of a stage for him, or if it was just bad situation with the coach. Because like I know, and I don't want to revert this down to Miami, but like when we had Tua, his first couple of years, it just seemed like him and the coach, they weren't really vibing. They didn't get along. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of support for him coming from the head coach, and it affected his play in the field. And I don't know if that was the same way with Zach Wilson or not, whether or not it was just.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not at all. It was more Zach. Tua was the actual starting quarterback in NFL. How you play something, it's up to people. I'm not gonna get into that because I don't need a lot of angry fans on my timeline. But the fact of the matter is this: Zach Wilson is not a starting quarterback in the league. I mean, yes, he has tools that can very athletic. They can throw the ball as far as it can go, just about. But just as far as in the accuracy level, I mean, it's just not there. I mean. Yeah, maybe he can go to Denver, get a reset or whatever. I don't expect him to start. I'm not even sure he's going to make the team in Denver. Although I think it's a good chance he might be their third quarterback. But Stidham, and then of course they took Bo Nix, so they got two quarterbacks going for one spot there. But yeah, I definitely think he could potentially be a backup quarterback somewhere. But as far as him starting, I just think he just displayed the same inconsistencies throughout his tenure. And maybe going somewhere else might give him a little bit of a new lease on life and everything like that. But yeah, I think he's a long way from being a starter in the league, put it that way, a consistent starter.
Right on, Anton. So my next question, like, it's not fantasy football based, but it is potentially going to help me make my decision in my fantasy league. I have the second overall pick coming up, and I don't know if you play fantasy or if you gamble online or anything. But if you're looking for a new fantasy football platform, I do got to pay the bills real quick. So I'm going to hit this commercial. Then we're going to get back to this running back question I have for you. For those that aren't already aware, Rival Fantasy is the newest evolution in fantasy sports. Rival's all-in-one fantasy platform has changed the fantasy sports landscape. From fantasy bingo, where you mark off boxes of achievements that your players accomplish on the field, to season-long and best ball leagues, to mock drafts and challenges, and more. They have the perfect user-friendly website and app for you. So send a challenge to your friend or send a challenge to your rival and tell them to put their money where their mouth is. But your first deposit of up to $200 will be matched, plus an additional $25 just for using that link, joinrival.com/titletribe. That's joinrival.com/titletribe. Now, that question I have for you leading into the running backs here is I've got the second overall pick in a very running back heavy league where we know Christian McCaffrey is going to go 101. So I'm heavily leaning towards Breece Hall with this 102 pick. And I got to know, looking at the depth chart, it doesn't look like there's much behind him. And now we got Aaron Rodgers. Like, is there something that might potentially prevent Breece Hall from having just a standout, dynamite, explosive season?
Not outside of injuries, no. I mean, you always have to factor in injuries or whatever. But, I mean, I know they did draft two running backs. That's got to see some time there. I definitely think Robert Saleh being in San Francisco, he understands that Kyle Shanahan and also now Mike McDaniel like to use a variety of different running backs. I still see Breece Hall still getting about 25 touches, maybe up to 30 a game. But yeah, you might be some times where they split up running backs. But I think that's with all running backs nowadays in the NFL. Nobody's necessarily a true bell cow running back like how they used to be with, back in the 90s, 2000, or even what you saw with Adrian Peterson. But yeah, I think he's going to get a fair share of the bulk of the carries. So I think you'll be in good shape.
So, right on. How about you, George? You scared of it?
No. I Breece Hall, you take him at 2, you take him at the 103. It's a great pick. What concerns me for Breece Hall is not his talent, not his injury. He's a year away from the ACL tear, which is good. Typically, the further away from the tear, the better it is. Is that offensive line though for New York? Like, that's been just they've tried to address it previously in the draft. It didn't work. This offseason, they brought in the left tackle from Dallas, whose his name is
Tyron Smith.
Yeah, Tyron Smith. But he's been injured quite a bit. I don't know if Mekhi Becton is still in New York. He's been injured quite a bit. He's gone.
He's with the Eagles now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
and then they did draft Fashanu, Olu Fashanu from Penn State. They drafted him hopefully to help with the line. How big of a concern is it for you, the offensive line in New York?
They've gotten better, so I don't think it's necessarily a concern for me to play. I mean, they ended up trading for Morgan Moses with the Ravens. They also added John Simpson in free agency to replace Lincoln Tomlinson, so they're set. I mean, I think as a starting unit, I think they're much better than what they were a year ago, especially with you have like Tyron Smith there, who's arguably the best left tackle of his generation, if not at least one of the in that discussion. I think the problem is it's just the injuries and the overall depth. There's not a lot of depth there. And then, as you saw, the last couple of years, the Jets have been bitten by injuries on the offensive line. Had 14 different combinations in 17 games. So last year, so I definitely think the depth of it is a little bit concerning. Although Fashano, who won't start at least initially, they hope not. He's just there for depth purposes. Should something happen to Tyron Smith, who has not played a full season in nearly 10 years in 2015. So, yeah, I definitely think, I think they're in a much better place on the offensive line than what they were even a year ago.
And then the other place they, besides Tyron Smith, the other place they made a splash this offseason was with wide receiver. They brought in Mike Williams. They drafted Malachi Corley. You still have Wilson as the number one there. Like, with a potentially healthy Aaron Rodgers coming back, what can we expect from the wide receiver room here?
Well, I mean, for Mike Williams, we'll see how healthy he is. He's probably not going to be ready for training camp. At least that's what I've been told and what General Manager Joe Douglas said. So we'll see how his production looks like. Getting Malachi Corey, I think that was a must, especially considering the status or unknown status of Mike Williams. Yeah, outside of that, I think I like the top three in those guys. The bottom three, you got Lazard, who he really struggled a year ago. Only had 24 catches, I believe, 311 yards, and 1 touchdown on the season. Really disappointing considering the Jets gave him a 4-year, $44 million contract. And then you have Xavier Gibson and also Jason Brownlee, two emerging young guys too as well. But yeah, I think the top wide receivers, I definitely think they're going to do a really good job. I really love the Corley pick. He was a guy that could separate from defenders, but also run through them too with his physicality. So yeah, I think they're in a much better spot than what they were a year ago, and I expect the receivers to contribute.
Yeah, I like it, and I think with Malachi Corley personally, I had him rated as a early second round pick. So for them to get him with that that early third round pick, I think was a great value there as well. So that should help out tremendously. My next question, Ashley, I'm gonna steer this more towards the coaching staff there and Robert Saleh, and the reason is because I'm a big fan of Robert Saleh, and so is most of the nation. I feel like I'm really curious to see how they feel about him in New York, though, because the NFL is a real "what have you done for me lately" sort of league, and he came in, he made some noise early, but he's gone 4-13. Then he went 7-10. He went 7-10. Not really a huge breakthrough. Obviously, they got to get him the fourth year with Aaron Rodgers to see what happens. But if they don't make some noise and really start to knock on the door of the playoffs this year, are we potentially looking at a man that's on the hot seat already?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is. I mean, I think you could say the whole regime is on the hot seat simply because, I mean, they hadn't won. This is a results-based business. Joe Douglas has been there, the general manager, since 2019. And then you look at Robert Saleh coming in 2021, and it's been losing records ever since then. Now, last year, of course, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, so they get a bit of a mulligan there. But yeah, they have to make the playoffs. I think they have to. They have the longest playoff drought in the league. Other teams suffered injuries last year, but they were like the Browns, and they were still able to overcome those injuries and still find a way to get to the playoffs. The Jets could have done that too, especially with the great defense that they have. But yeah, this is it. They have to win, or it's going to be major changes that's going to take place. I'm not saying everything is Robert's fault or Joe. I think it's a collection of a lot of different things that kind of happen. But in the end, you got to win. It's rare that people like coaches get 3 years in this league with 3 losing records for seasons, and now he's getting another opportunity. So yeah, you got to get it done.
And you called it a mulligan. It's not like playing golf with George. In the NFL, you only get one mulligan if you're lucky.
I don't take mulligans. I just listen, my card when I turn it in after the 18 is just, it's not accurate at all. I might have missed a couple of strokes on there. I might have taken some off that I took. Listen, I'm playing against myself out here. Okay, I can cheat if I want.
It's like playing golf with Charles Barkley, man.
I love Sir Charles.
Yeah.
Looking at the Jets as a whole, they're in a very competitive AFC. So you got two other teams in the East, the Dolphins and the Bills. And the Bills, by the way, my opinion, probably the favorite right now to win the division. Just because I feel like until somebody can go out and beat them, even though they've lost some pieces, like they've added some pieces as well. So they're the favorites, in my opinion, to win that division. What do the Jets need to do besides health to overtake that division?
Prayer.
I mean, the Bills have the best quarterback, so I think that helps too, by far. No, I mean, to me. But, I mean, I'll prove offensively. I think they'll do that with Aaron a little bit as well, just getting him in there over Zach Wilson or Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, who started last year too. Obviously, it'll be an upgrade. The offensive line, they've already done that too as well. It just be consistent on offense and be able to score points. If they can score, this is a team I think they can score anywhere from 21 to 24 points consistently, then I think they're a playoff team, especially considering how good their defense is. It's just a matter of, getting that consistency offensively, because we know, if their defense continues to play at that same level the last couple of years, that's a top 5 defense, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be in the playoffs.
No, that's the one thing that you can look at the Jets, and no matter how bad they've been the last couple of years on offense, Robert Saleh's got that defense as the stalwart of that team. That you look at teams and they want to have some sort of identity, and I think defense for sure is definitely the identity of the Jets. Like that defense from top to bottom, your secondary, your linebackers, your front four, like those guys are all very, very good and very, very talented. And some of them will tell you how good and talented they are. And they've earned the right to do that.
I don't know if they've done that. Like, people put too much Sauce. Here's the thing. I think you're talking about Sauce Gardner, right?
Yes, I was. He
never said he was the best cornerback.
No.
A lot of people took that like, he never said that. He's a very humble guy. I don't know why people have come after Sauce. Like, he's not the one saying. I think he was asked what did he think he was the best corner. He said he thought he was. He didn't think he played long enough to be in that discussion. So I think he's a cool guy. I think he's I don't think he's a really brash guy. I don't know where that rap came from. I don't know. It can come from anywhere.
I actually wasn't taking it as a negative on him. I was looking at it as a positive. Like, I'm acknowledging he is one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. Is he the best? I will say probably not. But I mean, you can make a legit
He's in the top 3.
case.
He's definitely the top 3 right now.
You can make a solid case. He's the best cornerback in the NFL, and as long as you could put yourself in that discussion, like, there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, listen, I'm a very good cornerback. Like, I would be more disappointed or upset if a player came out and said, oh, well, I'm not very good. Like, that's not what I want to hear from an NFL player, especially one at a premium position like quarterback. Like, I want to hear, yeah, I'm good. And listen, here's why I'm good. Look at the stats. Look at what happens when players line up against me. Look at what the numbers they put up. They're not very good at all. Like, you can make a legit case. He's the number 1 cornerback in the league, and I like that about him. I have no problem with what he said, and I wasn't trying to disparage him at all. That's absolutely not the case.
So this is what I care most about.
I was just asking.
No. It's all good.
When it comes to Sauce, this is all I care most about. With Sauce Gardner and hashtag not a sponsor, but should be Buffalo Wild Wings. Make sure you bring back that saucy sauce for in-season NFL. If you guys haven't had that, the Sauce Gardner sauce, limited time only sauce, it's some good stuff. But I'll send them an email about a sponsorship later. But another thing that you can tell they're confident with their defense about is if you look at their draft. If you look at their draft, they only took 2 picks on the defensive side of the ball, and they were their last 2 picks, both to kind of help out with depth in the secondary. We don't anticipate those guys getting a lot of time. Hopefully they don't get any time to start the season. But So overall, with that defense, we can only assume and only imagine that they're only going to get better, right? So, so were there any big changes to that defense this offseason, though, that the fan base should be excited about?
Should be. I mean, obviously, Hassan Reddick, I definitely think is probably the one big, addition to it. I mean, you look at him, premier your pass rusher there, somebody that can help out setting the edge, but he can do it all. So I definitely think getting him, and then obviously Bryce Huff ended up leaving, but essentially kind of traded each other because Huff went to the Eagles, Reddick went to the Jets, but I definitely think at this juncture at least Reddick is probably a better player than Huff. But that's really the only really positive addition I would say to the defense. It was some negatives losing John Franklin Myers. They ended up trading him, and I definitely think Quentin Jefferson, somebody that had 6 sacks last year but was able to play inside and out. I think it's a big loss, and we're already talking about a team that was 20. That's the one Achilles heel that they had last year, stopping the run. They were 25th in rushing yards per game. So I definitely think if you wonder you kind of have questions about their defense, that's the area.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, if you look at that front seven, man, it's scary. It can be a scary defense, for sure. All right, George, I think that pretty much covers it on my end with questions. Do you have any other follow-ups or any other questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a hypothetical that I like to throw out there.
I forgot about this.
I usually don't like hypothetical questions, but I'll see what I can do.
No,
I forgot about this.
This one is just fun. It's 100% hypothetical.
Okay.
Would never happen. You cannot name any quarterbacks in the NFL. Quarterbacks are completely off limits. But if you could take any player in the NFL and add them to the Jets, you're not having to trade for them. You don't have to worry about salary cap implications. You're just literally reaching over, taking this player, putting him on the Jets. Who is it and why?
George Kittle. Because I think they could use a tight end that can, it's a game breaker. Not to take anything away from, Jeremy Ruckert or Tyler Conklin and those guys. But, either to have somebody like that, that's what I would do. I think just because George Kittle is really, really good and he fits that offense.
So the reason I asked that the question typically is there's 2 reasons. One, it's a fun question. I think it's a fun question. Just being able to cherry pick one player from a team to put him on your team, but it also typically tells us about a weakness on a team because most people are taking a player where they know their team is weak and adding a super strength to it. And I feel like that it actually with the George Kittle pick, I know I have a friend of mine. His name is Sal. He lives in New York. He's been preaching about Jeremy Ruckert since this kid was in high school. He used to be his soccer coach.
Yeah, he's from Long Island. Yeah, he's from Long Island. So yeah.
Yep. Sal. He's been preaching about Jeremy Ruckert. He used to be his soccer coach. And I'm hoping good things for him. I hope he has a long career in the NFL. But so far, we haven't really seen much from him, I feel.
I mean, because he's been behind on the depth chart, really. He's been third. Yep. And then now, at least with Conklin, he's kind of moved up to second because the Jets use a lot of 12 personnel. So, we'll see if he can, get cracked a little bit more playing time this upcoming year. But, I definitely think them not taking Brock Bowers kind of showed confidence in him and also Tyler Conklin, who is their starter.
Yeah, when I did right before the draft, I did a mock draft. I went through, picked all 32 teams, and I actually had Brock Bowers mocked to the Jets. That's where I thought that they were going.
Not. Yeah, I did not. Like I never was on that train at all, but because I of course I knew some things, but I just didn't see it. I thought he was either going to be Roman Dunze or they would take an offensive lineman, and of course they took the lineman,
which I think was smart. Listen, I like Brock Bowers, the player, but if I have a choice to take a tight end or a tackle early in the draft, I'm taking the tackle every single time. I'm a trenches guy. That's where I like to see the teams build. So I think it was a smart move long term for the Jets franchise, starting with that tackle in the first. Especially an early pick, because you guys should not have, and I say you guys, but the Jets should not have an early pick next year if things go okay for that team. Like they should not be picking in the top 10.
They hope not.
Yeah, they do. They really, really
so.
do. If they're picking in the top 10, something has gone terribly wrong, and there's probably an overhaul coming in New York.
Yeah, likely. Yeah. Most likely, yes.
And okay, and I got one more question for you. Has there been any consideration whatsoever into changing the field that they play on?
You have to talk to the Giants about that because the Jets just leased there, so it's technically the Giants stadium. So it's not.
Okay.
People ask me about it, but it's nothing. Woody Johnson. I mean, it had to be something he would have to talk to the Mara family about.
Okay. See, and that's why we bring these experts on.
But what I would say is like they have to change the field to grass for the World Cup that's coming. So I don't know what their plan is in regards to that, but they haven't express the details about that.
It would be phenomenal if they changed it from the turf. It just seems like so many players get injured on that turf that it's not safe anymore.
Well, it's a dual purpose stadium. So anytime you have those people that have dual purpose stadium, they typically have turf just because it's so much cheaper instead of grass.
Easier to maintain.
Yeah, I imagine they'll at least have to change for the World Cup, but I don't know if they would switch back to the turf or not. But we'll find out in a few years, I guess.
And this is why Antwan reminded me about the injury issues earlier when we were talking about Breece Hall. You always got to factor that in, right? That's exactly what he said. I'm glad you asked that other question too, George. I'm an idiot and I didn't have a tight end question loaded and ready to go. I completely forgot about the position there, so that was a good question there. But
thank you,
guys. We're pushing it on the time here. But real quick, I do have to remind everybody again, patreon.com/toilets-to-titles. Make sure you're helping us to support the team. We've got a team of at least like 13 or 14 guys that are all going to be meeting us, guys and gals from the Toilets to Titles team that are going to be meeting us in Canton, Ohio for the Fantasy Football Expo in August. Make sure you check out booths 31 and 32, where we'll be giving away all kinds of awesome, cool stuff. But Antwan, man, we really appreciate your time. We know time is money, and you chose to spend some of it with us this evening. So thank you very much. And again, just a reminder to all the Jets fans out there watching right now, make sure you're hitting up his Twitter handle down there at the bottom at Antwan Staley. So thanks again, Antwan.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.